can't read. That part. That as an intro, and I'll play chords with you there, I think, and then I'll drop out. And then in the middle of it, we can just play a whole time through, playing the melody if you want, or playing anything based on the melody. And we'll just play the form. We'll play the form. Yeah. Let's just run the intro real quick. It's fine. And I would lay out of this until like we talk about. So you're gonna do a. That one. So go ahead and I'll catch you.
How do you do, Private Willie McBride?
Play that last line again. Well, are you starting start the whole thing over?
Yep.
Okay. Go ahead.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I can do that.
Let's try it again.
Whoa.
Let's go.
Tighten that up a bit. If I sit here down by your graveside, rest for a while in the warm summer sun. Been walking all day, Lord, and I'm nearly done. When I see by your gravestone you were only 19 when you joined the glorious fallen in 1916. But I hope you died quick, and I hope you died clean. Or Willie McBride, was it slow and obscene? Did they beat the drum slowly? Did they sound the fife lowly? Did the rifles fire hoary as they lowered you down? Did the bugles play the last post in chorus? Did the pipes play the flowers of the forest? And did you leave a wife for a sweetheart?
So then maybe sing that verse and then Nolan lead.
Okay.
Okay, so first verse, then Nolan. No. Your next verse. Okay, and then Nolan.
So Nolan between the second and third, so Nolan would be between
Testing.
the wife or sweetheart and the son on the fields.
Yeah. Listen, I want you to sing like you did, and then one more verse.
Right.
And one more through the form, and then Nolan.
Okay, so basically Nolan's verse would be then between the third and fourth, right?
Okay.
So it'd be.
It
I
doesn't
like
really
that
matter,
because
I don't want you
Right.
to do it after the very first verse.
no, I like it between the third and fourth because I like having that break from the sort of retrospective to the very angry verse,
Great.
and I think that's going to be fantastic.
I want you to sing the two.
I'm thinking, yeah, 3 times. So
Great.
3 verses and choruses, then you, then 1 more verse and chorus. That'd be so great. Yes, very true.
Nolan, that's great. Thank you.
Music takes where half of them are anti-war songs and the other half are more propaganda. It's kind of awesome.
Okay. So.
This is the First Unitarian Church of Omaha, Nebraska. This is Sunday, the 11th of November, 2018. This is Memorial Day.
have I sit here down by your graveside, rest for a while in the warm summer sun. I've been walking all day, Lord, and I'm nearly done. Last see by your gravestone, you were only 19 when you joined the glorious fallen in 1916. I hope you died quick, and I hope you died clean. Or Willie McBride, was it slow and obscene? Did they beat the drum slowly? Did they sound the fife lowly? Did the rifles fire hoary as they lowered you down? Did the bugles sing the last posting chorus? Did the pipes play the flowers of the forest? And did you leave a wife or a sweetheart behind? And some faithful heart is your memory enshrined. And though you died here back in 1916, in that loyal heart, are you always 19? Or are you a stranger without even a name, entombed on a mantle behind a glass pane, and an old photograph torn and tattered and stained and fading to yellow in a brown leather frame? Did they beat the drum slowly? Did they sound the fife lowly? Did the rifles fire hoary as they lowered you down? Did the bugles sing the last posting chorus? Did the pipes play the flowers of the forest? The sun shining now on these green fields of France. The warm wind blows gently and the red poppies dance. The trenches have vanished long under the plow. No gas and no barbed wire, no guns firing now. But here in this graveyard, it's still no man's land. The countless white crosses in mute witness stand to man's blind indifference to his fellow man. And a whole generation who were butchered and damned. Did they beat the drum slowly? Did they sound the fife lowly? Did the rifles fire hoary as they lowered you down? Did the bugles sing the last posting chorus? Did the pipes play the flowers of the forest? Wonder now, Private McBride, do all those who lie here know why they died? Did you really believe them when they told you the cause? Did you really believe that this war would end wars? Well, the suffering, the sorrow, the glory, the shame, the killing, the dying, 'twas all done in vain. For Willie McBride, it's all happened again, and again, and again, and again, and again. Did they beat the drum slowly? Did they sound the fife lowly? Did the rifles fire hoary as they lowered you down? Did the bugles play the last posting chorus? Did the pipes play the flowers of the forest? Did the bugles play the last posting chorus? Did the pipes play the flowers of the forest?
Good morning and welcome to First Unitarian. If you are here for the first time or the 50th time, we welcome you. There's always a lot going on here at our church, and anyone is welcome to attend any of our events. Announcements are in the blue things in the back, or if you're savvy, you can use the QR code on your order of service. There are a few things I do want to point out. First of all, visitors, we invite you to our coffee hour downstairs afterwards. If you are comfortable, take a blue cup. It lets us know that you are a visitor and that you're open for conversation. We're shy, really. Also, if you can sign in on the pink sheets, let us know who's here and who's not so that we know if we need to reach out to anybody. If you parked in the parking garage, make sure to get your parking ticket validated at the machine downstairs in the common room. It is picky, and don't give up on it. It might take you a few times. A couple of things I want to point out. We do have a leadership talk back this morning and during coffee hour. There is a CUPS business meeting tonight at 6 o'clock. There is a book signing that will be happening on Saturday, November 17th at the Bookworm. So it starts at 3:30, and if you can be there to support Dave and his efforts to get our book out into the community, that would be fantastic. We do have 2 caring notes. Joe Schaff's mother, our president-elect, passed away last week. There is a memorial planned for December 1st here at the church. And also, Beth Conover's mother passed away, and she did ask that we read this. Jean Conover, mother of Beth, died November 6th. Fittingly, this was Election Day. If it had been possible, she would have been working to get out the vote and advocate for the policies of kindness that she believed in. Jean was known for her mentoring of hundreds of Hmong refugees. She and her husband, David, were active members of various Wisconsin UU churches and fellowships for 60 years, and a memorial service will be planned in Maine at Ferry Beach. The only other thing I have as far as announcements, we are looking for a forum coordinator. If you're interested, find me at coffee hour. I'll tell you all about it. It's a great job, really. And I would also like to say thank you to Carolyn for our gorgeous flowers this morning. Also, Carolyn is the author of this service. It was her idea. She did all the organizing. I just get to stand up here and read everything that she put together. So thank you, Carolyn. Today, we celebrate the 100th anniversary of the end of World War I. It is Armistice Day, now known as Veterans Day. 100 years ago, the American public was decidedly against entering World War I, and President Wilson was reelected in 1916 because of it. But the reports of German atrocities in Belgium began to change the generally positive view that most Americans held of the Germans. When a German U-boat sank the British liner Lusitania on May 7, 1915, with 128 U.S. citizens aboard, President Wilson demanded an end to German attacks on passenger ships and warned that the U.S. would not tolerate unrestricted submarine warfare in violation of international law and of human rights. When the Germans renewed unconditional submarine warfare, Wilson went before a joint session of Congress to seek a declaration of war against Germany in order that the world be made safe for democracy. The United States declared war on Germany on April 6, 1917, more than 2.5 years after World War I started. The American public fervently embraced the war once it was declared. Americans around the country, including the strongly pacifist Midwest, pitch in to support the war effort. There were all kinds of patriotic displays and an explosion of patriotic fervor not seen in America since the Civil War. Large numbers of young men enlisted well before selective service went into effect. There were plenty of parades and fundraising efforts. The song "Over There" was one of the most famous songs of World War I. It was an inspiration both to the young men who were being sent to fight the war, as well as to those on the home front who worried about their loved ones.
Testing. Hi. Welcome, guys. It's good to see you. Come on down. I think I can do it. We made it happen. Hi, everybody. So today we are talking about Veterans Day, which was previously known as Armistice Day, the end of the war, and now has umbrellaed to be a celebration and a thank you for all people who have served in any branch of our military service. So I have a picture to show you. I never served in the military, but I did do JROTC. And so I have my picture of Miss Kate and her, what they called me was a pickle, in my pickle uniform back in the day, a couple 100 years ago, maybe not quite that long. But it was a time that I really admire and respect, and it's actually one of my biggest regrets is that I didn't actually follow through with military service. I couldn't find a drill sergeant and a theater director who would agree on my schedule. So I made different decisions in my life. But one of the things that I love about military service is what it asks you about your beliefs. So we have some beliefs at this church, right? We say that this is the church of the open mind, the helping hands, and the loving heart, right? So you guys have all grown up in our church community here, and you say that a lot in class, right? This is the church of the open mind, the helping hands, and the loving heart. And it's something that is powerful to you that I think you take out into the world, right? Well, if I asked you, if I said, okay, guys, I need some people to come and stand up here with me and do anything that's asked of them. You get to volunteer to do it. But when you come up, I'm going to do anything. You have to do anything that I ask of you. But it's for these ideals that we push forward. Are there any volunteers who would be willing to come up and trust Miss Kate with anything that I would ask of you? Who would come up? Will you stand up with me? Come on. Who will stand up with me? Will you stand up and do some stuff with me? Come on. Come on up. Clara, will you stand up and do some stuff with me? No, and we don't all want to, right? Sometimes it's a little bit scary. Will you stand up and do some stuff? I promise it'll be easy. Anybody? Miss Jan, will you stand up and do some stuff with us? Come on up. Excellent. All right. So when you sign up for military service, they say, will you do, thank you, Miss Denise, will you do anything that we ask? So we're going to work together as a group, because that's what we do in the military is we work together as a group. So we're going to start by saying the ABCs. But we have to do it together as a group. So, Will, can you give us the first three of the ABCs?
ABC.
Nice. Well done. Can you continue?
D, E, F.
Now, I have to do it all in my head to get back to where we were with D, A, B, C, D, E, F. Can you do G?
G.
And can you also do H and
I. H and I.
H and I. And can you do some of the ABCs?
J, K, L.
M, N, O. And those are three different letters, in case you didn't know. M, N, O. They're not M, N, O, P. M, N, O. And then can you do P, Q, R?
P, Q, R.
S, T, U.
W.
B and W. You want to do W as well? Sometimes in the military we have to let other people have their job and you have your job. W.
X, Y, Z.
Nice. Okay. Good job. Because we all worked together and we all did our part. Now I have another job for you. You ready? I need to get 20 high fives from people out there, which means all of us have to get 4 high fives. Can we do it? Come on, let's all go get 4 high fives. Come on, let's all get 4 high fives. Let's see if we can do it. 2, I'm gonna let him get a couple here. I'm gonna get one back here. 3, 4. Did you get him? Did we get him? You got a lot. Awesome. All right. So, how many of you who were up here were scared of what I was going to ask you to do before you did it? Because you weren't really sure. Will, do you like talking in the microphone in front of people? Not very much, huh? You won't even answer that question, right? So sometimes you have to do things that make you a little bit uncomfortable. And you weren't sure what I was going to ask you to do. But you all succeeded. Good job, you guys. Let's give them a round of applause. So all of the people who have served our military, and especially now where we get to make that choice ourselves, they decided on what they believed in and what had been asked of them, just like we did. We used our open minds to stand up and try something we didn't know. We used our helping hands to accomplish these tasks, and all of us got to have a piece of it. And we used our loving hearts to support each other. Did you see how they were all willing to support you when you needed your high fives? And we were willing to support each other to get that job. We decided what we believed in, and we came together as a group, and we did some tasks that were a little bit scary for some of us, and some of us said, nope, that's not for me at all. I'm not going to jump up and do that. But some of us did jump up, and they worked together, and I love that. And so I spoke with a veteran recently who said, I don't get why people thank me on Veterans Day. I show up and I do my job because it's my job and I signed up to do it. Well, I get that. I show up every day to be a teacher, and I don't do it for the thank yous. But you know what? The thank yous are nice. So I hope that you, and we have a number of veterans in our community here, I hope that you take that opportunity to say thank you. And the other thing that many veterans will tell you is that as they serve together, the thing that they most respect are the people next to them. Because a lot of times, when our own light goes out, it's rekindled by a spark from somebody serving next to you. And so we are going to light our own chalice that reminds us of that every day. Who's willing to come up and light the chalice with me? You know what that job is. Come on up. Please stand in body or in spirit for the lighting of our chalice. Hold, please. Wait, please. Let's make sure all hands. Oh my goodness, your shoe came off. Let's get all hands up. Do you want to come up and... You okay? All right. At times, our own light goes out and is rekindled by a spark from another person. Good job. Thank you. Each of us has cause to think that you have to. It's okay. Good job. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead and have a seat. Now is a time in our service where we take up the collection that helps us do the work that we do. Our Share the Plate beneficiary for the month of November is OTAC, Together One Community. And as always, our Change for Change goes to our neighborhood ministry team, which helps us help those who come to our door.
Our Heritage Minute this Sunday honors this date 100 years ago, marking the end of World War I. On the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month, church bells across the country rang 11 times. The day was, of course, celebrated as Armistice Day until 1954, when the name was changed to Veterans Day to honor all who have served in our armed forces. Approximately a year before the dedication of this church in 1918, a time capsule was placed in the cornerstone at the laying of the cornerstone containing historical data. One of those things was a list they called the honor roll, and that was all the young men at that time, who had volunteered to serve in the United States Armed Forces in World War I. So exactly 100 years ago at this time, we ring our bell to commemorate the 100th anniversary of the end of the Great War and to honor all of those who have served our country.
Not yet. Come on. American soldiers arrived on the Western Front at the rate of 10,000 men a day in the summer of 1918. During the short time the U.S. was involved, we mobilized over 4 million military personnel and suffered over 116,000 deaths, with more than 204,000 injured. There were also about 45,000 who died due to the 1918 Spanish influenza outbreak. As you entered today, you were given a red poppy, but you may not know why. In April of 1915, Major John McCrae, a medical officer with the Canadian Field Artillery, was in the trenches in Belgium in an area called Flanders, where some of the heaviest fighting of the First World War took place. In the trenches, John McCrae tended hundreds of wounded soldiers every day. He was surrounded by the dead and the dying. The day before he wrote his famous poem, one of his closest friends was killed and buried in a makeshift grave. Wild poppies were beginning to bloom between the crosses marking the many graves. Unable to help his friend or any of the others who had died, McCrae gave them a voice through his poem. And joining us today to read the poem is a member of our church, Sergeant Bob Jones.
In Flanders Fields by John McCrae. In Flanders Fields the poppies blow between the crosses, row on row, that mark our place, and in the sky the larks, still bravely singing, fly scarce heard amid the guns below. We are the dead. Short days ago we lived, felt dawn, saw sunset glow, loved and were loved. And now we lie in Flanders Fields. Take up our quarrel with the foe. To you from failing hands we throw the torch. Be yours to hold it high. If ye break faith with those who die, we shall not sleep, though poppies grow in Flanders Fields.
Gonna lay down my sword and shield down by the riverside, down by the riverside, down by the riverside. Gonna lay down my sword and shield down by the riverside. Ain't gonna study war no more. I ain't gonna study war no more. 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 Ain't gonna study war no more.
I'm gonna put on my starry crown down by the riverside, down by the riverside, down by the riverside. I'm gonna put on my starry crown down by the riverside. Ain't gonna study war no more. I ain't gonna study war no more. 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 We're gonna join hands with everyone down by the riverside, down by the riverside, down by the riverside. We're gonna join hands with everyone down by the riverside. Ain't gonna study war no more. We ain't gonna study war no more. Ain't gonna study war no more. Ain't gonna study war no more. We ain't gonna study war no more. Ain't gonna study war no more. Ain't gonna study war no more.
War is a noisy thing, and so is the world. Let's take a moment to close our eyes and just sit in silence and hope for peace. A ceasefire was declared and the armistice was signed and came into force at 11 a.m. Paris time on November 11th, 1918, the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month. It marked a victory for the Allies and a complete defeat for Germany. It was said to be the end of the war to end all wars. On November 11th, 1961, President John F. Kennedy made some remarks at a Veterans Day ceremony. Today, we welcome our own Major Timothy Duggan to read those remarks for us.
General Gavin, Mr. Gleason, members of the military forces, veterans, fellow Americans. Today, we are here to celebrate and to honor and to commemorate the dead and the living, young men who in every war since this country began have given testimony to their loyalty to their country and their own great courage. I do not believe that any nation in the history of the world has buried its soldiers farther from its native soil than we Americans, or buried them closer to the towns in which they grew up. We celebrate this Veterans Day for a very few minutes, a few seconds of silence, and then this country's life goes on. But I think it most appropriate that we recall on this occasion and on every other moment when we are faced with great responsibilities, the contribution and the sacrifice which so many men and their families have made in order to permit this country to now occupy its present position of responsibility and freedom, and in order to permit us to gather here together. Bruce Catton, after totaling the casualties which took place in the Battle of Antietam, not so very far from this cemetery, when he looked at statistics which showed that in the short space of a few minutes, whole regiments lost 50 to 75% of their numbers, then wrote that life perhaps isn't the most precious gift of all, that men died for the possession of a few feet of a cornfield or a rocky hill, or almost nothing at all. But in a very larger sense, they died that this country might be permitted to go on, and that it might permit to be fulfilled the great hopes of its founders. In a world tormented by tension and the possibilities of conflict, we meet in a quiet commemoration of an historic day of peace in an age that threatens the survival of freedom. We join together to honor those who made our freedom possible. The resolution of the Congress, which first proclaimed Armistice Day, described November 11, 1918 as the end of the most destructive, sanguinary, and far-reaching war in the history of human annals. That resolution expressed the hope that the First World War would be, in truth, the war to end all wars. It suggested that those men who had died had therefore not given their lives in vain. It is a tragic fact that these hopes have not been fulfilled, that wars still more destructive and still more sanguinary followed, that man's capacity to devise new ways of killing his fellow men have far outstripped his capacity to live in peace with his fellow men. Some might say, therefore, that this day has lost its meaning, that the shadow of the new and deadly weapons have robbed this day of its great value, that whatever name we now give this day, whatever flags we fly or prayers we utter, it is too late to honor those who died before, and too soon to promise the living an end to organized death. But let us not forget that November 11, 1918 signified a beginning as well as an end. The purpose of all war, said Augustine, is peace. The First World War produced man's first great effort in recent times to solve by international cooperation the problems of war. That experiment continues in our present day, still imperfect, still short of its responsibilities, but it does offer a hope that someday nations can live in harmony. For our part, we shall achieve that peace only with patience and perseverance and courage, the patience and perseverance necessary to work with allies of diverse interests but common goals, the courage necessary over a long period of time to overcome an adversary skilled in the arts of harassment and obstruction. There is no way to maintain the frontiers of freedom without cost and commitment and risk. There is no swift and easy path to peace in our generation. No man who witnessed the tragedies of the last war, no man who can imagine the unimaginable possibilities of the next war, can advocate war out of irritability or frustration or impatience. But let no nation confuse our perseverance and patience with fear of war or unwillingness to meet our responsibilities. We cannot save ourselves by abandoning those who are associated with us or rejecting our responsibilities. In the end, the only way to maintain the peace is to be prepared in the final extreme to fight for our country and to mean it. As a nation, we have little capacity for deception. We can convince friend and foe alike that we are in earnest about the defense of freedom only if we are in earnest. And I can assure the world that we are. This cemetery was established 97 years ago. In this hill were first buried men who died in an earlier war, a savage war here in our own country. 97 years ago today, the men in gray were retiring from Antietam, where thousands of their comrades had fallen between dawn and dusk in one terrible day. And the men in blue were moving towards Fredericksburg, where thousands would soon lie by a stone wall in heroic and sometimes miserable death. It was a crucial moment in our nation's history. But these memories, sad and proud, these quiet grounds, this cemetery and others like it around the world, remind us with pride of our obligation and our opportunity. On this Veterans Day of 1961, on this day of remembrance, let us pray in the name of those who have fought in this country's wars, and most especially who have fought in the First World War and in the Second World War, that there will be no veterans of any further war, not because all shall have perished, but because all shall have learned to live together in peace. And to the dead here in this cemetery we say, they are the race immortal, whose beams make broad the common light of day. Though time may dim, though death has barred their portal, these we salute, which nameless passed away.
In 1954, after the Korean War, Armistice Day was renamed Veterans Day to honor all veterans who served America in war and defended democracy. Today, we honor all of our veterans who unselfishly placed their lives on the line for our freedom. If you are a veteran, I ask that you please stand and remain standing. Don't sit down. If you are currently serving in the armed forces, please stand. No? They all stayed home to sleep. If you had a family member or a friend who died or was killed in action in any conflict, please stand. For all that you've sacrificed, we thank you. You can sit now.
In your order of service, there is an insert with the lyrics for our song, and it's listed twice. We'll only sing it one time through.
We'd like everyone to sing with us.
Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, the peace that was meant to be, with God as our Father, brothers all are we. Let me walk with my brother in perfect harmony. Let peace begin with me. Let this be the moment now. With every step I take, let this be my solemn vow, to take each moment and live each moment with peace eternally. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me.
Our closing words today are by Elaine Gallagher Germain. Walk softly, speak truthfully, love gently, breathe deeply, live wisely, and go in peace.
In Flanders fields, the poppies blow. Between the crosses, row on row, that mark our place, and in the sky, the lark still bravely singing fly, scarce heard amid the guns below. We are the dead, short days ago. We lived, fell down, saw sunset glow, loved and were loved, and now we lie in Flanders fields,
up our quarrel with the foe. To you from failing hands we throw. The torch be yours to hold it high. If ye break faith with us who die, we shall not sleep though poppies grow in Flanders fields, in Flanders fields. We shall not sleep though poppies grow in Flanders fields, in Flanders fields.